The Galactic Council's annual Species Summit was meant to be peaceful. That changed when Ambassador Chen Wei found herself defending humanity's honor over a glass of alien moonshine. You call this strong? The Vaxian delegate's translucent tentacles rippled with derision as he held up a bottle of Earth whiskey. Our younglings drink stronger cleaning solutions. Wei maintained her diplomatic smile, though her jaw tightened. She'd spent 15 years representing Earth in interstellar relations, but something about the Vaxian smugness made her want to break protocol. Perhaps you'd prefer something with more character. She gestured to her aide, who brought forward an unmarked black case. The assembled alien diplomats leaned forward, their various sensory organs fixed on the mysterious container. The Vaxian's chief biochemist, Dr. Cthulhu, waved a detection device over the case. Fascinating. I'm reading ethanol concentrations that would dissolve your primitive carbon-based tissues. And yet, Wei said, opening the case to reveal rows of carefully packed bottles, we not only survive it, we cultivate it as an art form. The summit hall buzzed with murmurs. Humanity was still considered a juvenile species by most standards. Their mastery of controlled toxins was unexpected. Impossible, declared High Chancellor Zix of the Silicon Confederation. Your species has barely achieved interstellar travel. You cannot have surpassed our biochemical expertise. Wei poured measured amounts of various Earth spirits into specialized containers. We may be young among the stars, but we've spent millennia perfecting the science of fermentation. Every human culture developed their own techniques, their own sacred recipes. The Vaxian delegate scoffed. A primitive religious practice then. Science, art, and perhaps a touch of magic. Wei replied, her eyes twinkling. Would you care to compare our achievements? Your strongest recreational compound against ours. The challenge hung in the air like plasma before a storm. The Vaxian's pride wouldn't allow him to refuse, but Wei saw uncertainty flicker across his phosphorescent features. Terms, he asked carefully. Simple. We exchange our finest creations. The species that produces the most potent yet consumable beverage wins the rights to establish the first neutral trading post in the Orion Arm. The stakes were astronomical. That trading route could reshape the galaxy's economic landscape. The Vaxian delegation huddled together, chittering in their native tongue. We accept, their leader announced. Prepare your strongest brew, humans. We will return in 3 standard cycles with ours. As the aliens filed out, Wei's aide whispered urgently, Ambassador, are you sure about this? The trading rights. Wei smiled, patting the black case. Trust me, Zhang. They think they're dealing with amateurs who stumbled into the stars. They don't realize that humans have been trying to perfect the art of getting drunk since we first discovered fermented fruit. We've had a 10,000-year head start. She lifted one bottle from the case, its clear contents catching the starlight. And they definitely don't know about our secret weapon yet. The label read simply, Moonshine, 190 proof. 3 cycles passed like a supernova, brief but intense. The summit reconvened with an air of barely contained excitement. Every major species had sent representatives, drawn by rumors of the impending challenge. The Vaxian delegation arrived with a hovering containment unit, its surface crawling with warning symbols. Their biochemist, Dr. Cthulhu, inputted a complex sequence, and the unit's shields shimmered away to reveal a swirling bioluminescent liquid. Behold, Cthulhu announced, essence of enlightenment, distilled from deep-sea organisms that live in superheated methane vents. 1 drop can incapacitate a Kraken-class being. Ambassador Wei studied the shifting colors with genuine interest. Impressive. The bioluminescence, a warning mechanism. Natural defense against consumption. Cthulhu preened. We've modified it to be survivable, mostly. We nodded thoughtfully. Our ancestors had similar ideas. They too found organisms that produced powerful compounds. But we took a different approach. She opened her case, revealing an array of bottles that seemed disappointingly ordinary by comparison. We learned to work with nature rather than against it, White continued. To cultivate relationships with microscopic allies we call yeasts and bacteria. To create environments where they could thrive and transform simple sugars into something extraordinary. She began arranging the bottles in chronological order of human innovation. Beer, our first breakthrough. Wine, when we learned patience. Whiskey, mastery of distillation. Each step brought us closer to understanding the fundamental chemistry of alcohol. The alien delegates crowded closer, their earlier disdain giving way to curiosity. Y held up a clear bottle filled with what looked like water. And this is our pinnacle, not because it's the most complex, but because it represents pure efficiency. The closest thing to pure ethanol that can still be safely consumed. Kthra's instruments weird. Impossible. The concentration would destroy most organic matter. Way finished. Yes, that's what makes it remarkable. We didn't just create a powerful intoxicant. We evolved alongside it. Humans have spent thousands of generations building tolerance, developing enzymes to process it, even learning to enjoy its effects. The Vaxian leader's tentacles twisted anxiously. You claim your species intentionally exposed itself to increasing levels of poison. For pleasure, for science, for celebration, for solace. Wei's voice took on a lecturer's tone. Every human culture discovered fermentation independently. It's not just chemistry. It's part of our story. We learned to harness microorganisms before we understood what they were. We built religions around brewing before we could write. We turned poison into medicine, ritual into industry. She gestured to her collection. Each bottle here represents thousands of years of human ingenuity, trial and error, countless experiments, some fatal, all leading to this moment. Kthra's analysis of the clear liquid completed with a sharp chirp. The biochemist's color drained to a pale blue. This shouldn't be possible for carbon-based life to process. And yet, Wei smiled, pouring 2 measures. Here we are. Shall we begin? The testing chamber hummed with anticipation. Medical monitors from a dozen different species tracked vital signs, while environmental controls maintained perfect neutrality. This was no longer just a contest. It had become a scientific event. Wei studied her opponent. The Vaxian delegate, Commander Nix, had been specifically chosen for his species' legendary chemical resistance. His tentacles showed no sign of tremor despite having consumed enough of their essence to theoretically stun a small ship's crew. Your turn, Nix gestured with an upper appendage. Unless human courage fails. We lifted the glass of clear liquid, letting starlight play through it. A toast first, she suggested, to understanding between species. The assembled diplomats murmured appreciatively of the gesture. Even Nix's bioluminescent patches flickered in what might have been approval. Your species has surprised us, Ambassador, he admitted. Few would dare to challenge Vaxian biochemical supremacy. Fewer still would survive this long. Perhaps that's because you've misunderstood our relationship with alcohol, Wei replied, taking a measured sip. You see it as a toxin to be conquered. We see it as a teacher. The monitoring equipment registered the ethanol entering her system. Several alien scientists made distressed sounds at the readings. Ambassador, Dr. Kthra interrupted, the concentrations you're consuming, they should be triggering massive cellular breakdown. Wei set down her glass, already half empty. Should they? Tell me, Doctor, what do your studies show about human liver function? Kthra consulted his instruments. Remarkable efficiency in processing ethanol, almost as if. Wait. His eyes widened. Your species has evolved specific biological pathways just for this purpose. Necessity breeds adaptation. Wei explained. Every human carries enzymes specifically designed to process alcohol. We developed them over thousands of generations of exposure, natural selection at its finest. Nix absorbed this information while his own glass of moonshine remained untouched. You intentionally evolved to consume poison. We evolved to transform poison into pleasure, into medicine, into art. Wei's color remained steady, even as the monitors showed the alcohol flooding her system. Every human culture found ways to ferment local materials. We learned which fruits, grains, and roots could be transformed. We documented the effects, refined the processes, passed the knowledge down through generations. She nodded to Nex's untested drink. That's not just alcohol in your glass. It's thousands of years of human history, trial and error, celebration and mourning. The story of our species learning to turn death into life. Nix's tentacles rippled with what might have been respect. And the trading rights. They were never your true goal, were they? Wei smiled. Consider this a lesson in underestimating primitive species. We made the young among the stars, but we've had a long time to perfect certain arts. The Vaxian commander lifted his glass at last. Then let us learn from each other, to understanding between species. Their glasses clinked, and that's when the chamber's alert systems began to wail. Emergency containment fields snapped into place as alarms screamed through the chamber. Dr. Cathra's instruments were going haywire, their readings climbing beyond established safety parameters. But it wasn't Wei who was in distress. Commander Nix's bioluminescence had shifted to a deep ultraviolet, his tentacles writhing in patterns that suggested intense neural activity. The small sip of moonshine he'd taken was having an unexpected effect, but not the one anyone had anticipated. Fascinating, he whispered, his translator struggling to keep up with his rapidly shifting vocal patterns. Simply fascinating. Wei watched calmly, showing no surprise. You're experiencing heightened synaptic activity, aren't you? Increased neural plasticity, perhaps even temporary telepathic enhancement. The chamber went silent save for the humming of medical equipment. Thra's color had shifted to stark white. You knew this would happen. We suspected, Wei admitted. Human alcohol has unique effects on crystalline neural structures, like those found in Vaxian brains. We discovered this during preliminary contact, but kept it quiet until we could verify our findings. The Galactic Council's security chief, a towering Arcturian, stepped forward. This was a weapons test. His gravitational field fluctuated dangerously. Quite the opposite, Wei countered. It's a gift. Commander, would you care to explain what you're experiencing? Nix's tentacles had settled into a gentle wave pattern, his color returning to normal. Clarity, he said softly. Perfect clarity. The ethanol molecules. They're not attacking my neural pathways. They're optimizing them. Creating new connections. I can think in ways I never. A neural enhancer, Cathra breathed. All this time, we thought human alcohol was just a recreational toxin. But you've been using it as a tool for expanding consciousness, Wei finished. Yes, though most humans never realized it. We knew alcohol could kill us, yet we kept drinking it. Generation after generation. Why? Because in the right doses, it helped us think differently, see differently, connect differently. She gestured to the bottle of moonshine. This isn't our deadliest creation. It's our most refined. Pure enough to interface with non-human neural systems, strong enough to break through conventional biological barriers, but carefully calibrated to enhance rather than destroy. The security chief's field stabilized as understanding dawned. The trading rights. You didn't want them for commerce. We want to establish neutral ground where species can gather, share drinks, and learn to understand each other, Wei explained. Just as humans have done for millennia. Alcohol has always been our tool for diplomacy, celebration, and bringing people together. Nix had begun documenting his experience, his tentacles moving with newfound precision. The potential applications, medicine, education, diplomatic relations, all possible, Wei agreed, but only if we work together. Every species will react differently. We'll need your biochemical expertise, your understanding of non-carbon neural structures. This isn't about humans teaching the galaxy to drink. It's about combining our knowledge to create something new. The alarms finally fell silent. Around the chamber, delegates began whispering excitedly among themselves. Centuries of assumptions about human biochemical achievements were being rewritten in real time. Threy approached the bottle of moonshine with new respect. All this time, we thought we were judging your civilization's maturity, but you were testing ours. We smiled. Sometimes the best way to understand a species is to see how they handle their drink. One standard month after the infamous moonshine incident, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. The chamber looked markedly different from traditional meetings. Gone were the rigid species segregations and formal barriers. Representatives mingled freely. Many gathered around small tables designed to accommodate diverse anatomies. Ambassador Wei stood at the central podium, surrounded by an array of bottles that would have been locked in a hazmat vault just weeks ago. Each one had been carefully modified for different species biochemistry, their contents shimmering with possibility. The results are conclusive, Dr. Threy announced, his tentacles moving with excitement as he presented the findings. Human alcohol, when properly adapted, demonstrates remarkable properties across multiple species. The Silicoids report enhanced crystal matrix organization. Arcturians experience controlled gravitational field modulation. Even the photonic lumini show improved coherence patterns. Wei nodded, unsurprised. For thousands of years, humans used alcohol as a social lubricant, a way to lower barriers between strangers and turn enemies into friends. We never imagined it would serve the same purpose on a galactic scale. The council hall's holoprojectors displayed data from hundreds of preliminary trials. Every participating species had discovered unique benefits from modified human spirits. More importantly, the shared experience of exploration had created unprecedented cooperation between traditionally isolationist races. Commander Nix, now heading the Joint Research Initiative, took the floor. We propose establishing not just one trading post, but a network of what humans call public houses, controlled environments where species can safely experience these beverages and their effects, places of cultural exchange, scientific discovery, and diplomatic breakthrough. Like the bars where humans have been solving problems for generations, Wei added with a smile. Sometimes the best negotiations happen over a shared drink. The council's primary voice, a being of pure energy, pulsed thoughtfully. This goes beyond simple intoxicants. You've introduced a tool for cross-species understanding. But the power of such a tool requires responsibility. Wei finished, which is why we propose joint oversight. Human experience with alcohol production, combined with advanced alien biochemistry and safety protocols. We've spent millennia learning the dangers and benefits of these substances. We won't repeat past mistakes on a galactic scale. The vote was swift and unanimous. The initiative would proceed, under careful monitoring from all member species. Already, diplomatic incidents had decreased wherever the modified spirits were introduced. It seemed the human practice of talking it out over drinks translated remarkably well to interstellar relations. As the session concluded, Frey approached Wei with a peculiar expression. You know, we've re-examined some ancient signals from Earth, what you call television broadcasts. There was one about a place where beings would gather to share drinks and stories. Cheers, Wei laughed. Where everybody knows your name. We're not suggesting every bar in the galaxy becomes that friendly. But it's a start. Nix finished, joining them. To think, we once dismissed human alcohol as a primitive poison. Instead, it might be the key to genuine galactic community. Wei lifted a glass containing a shimmering liquid that hadn't existed a month ago. A true cross-species spirit, designed to be safely enjoyed by all. To the future, then. And to proving that sometimes the oldest solutions are the best ones. Around the chamber, representatives of 1,000 worlds raised their own specially designed glasses. Each contained something different, tailored to their unique biology, but all born from the same human innovation that had begun with fermented fruits so many millennia ago. In the end, humanity's greatest contribution to galactic civilization wasn't their technology, their art, or their sciences. It was their ability to turn poison into peace and their willingness to share that achievement with the stars. As Wei looked out over the gathered species, she couldn't help but smile. Somewhere, in some ancient human tavern, the first person to brew beer would have been proud. Their experiment in fermentation had finally reached its logical conclusion, bringing not just humans, but the entire galaxy closer together, one drink at a time.